Hi everyone, my name is Kurt Taylor and welcome to Best Practices for the OpenBMC community. This is part 2, Communication. Regardless of the medium, communication in an open source project is vital, and I'll spend the next few minutes on it. Everyone wants OpenBMC to succeed. Everyone wants to start reaping the promise of open source. The way that happens is to learn to open up the internal communications within your company. As I discussed in the last part of this series, you have to invest to get benefit. So discuss this with your teams in your company. Easily 95% of your internal communications can happen in the open, in email or in IRC. And here I will share some advice on how to make that easier. IRC is the open source way of messaging. OpenBMC uses Freenode for real-time or near real-time lower latency messaging. And it should be your first choice, even if it's between teammates in your own company. Find an IRC client that you like. XChat is a good place to start if you're on Linux. Years ago I was exposed to XChat for Windows and it was pretty good. I have recently experimented with XChat Azure on Mac and LimeChat, and I actually prefer LimeChat. It's not a bad idea to set up an IRC bouncer or proxy to log the scroll back while you're away from your keyboard. There are several good ones. I like ZNC and have used it for years. It's easy to set up and configure, but there are other good ones as well. Some IRC etiquette. Don't ask to ask, just ask. That means don't jump in channel and ask if it's okay to ask a question. Just ask the question. Also, don't just ping someone about a specific question. Just ask the question. Also, don't ask if anyone is around. Just ask your question. And if you are going to ask a question about, say, debugging some code or a problem that you're seeing, don't flood the channel with a big log dump. Use a pastebin service. A pastebin service allows you to go to the service and paste in a large chunk of code or a large chunk of a log file, and it creates a link that you can then put in channel. That's a much better way than just flooding the channel with a big log dump. Be patient. It may take someone several hours to reply to your question. Also be mindful of time zone differences. Somebody may be in a different time zone and it may take them overnight to reply to your question. Avoid colloquialisms and regional phrases. There may be a phrase that you use all the time that someone in a different culture or a different part of the world may not understand. Communicate in channel. Try not to use some of the back channel and caching abilities of services like Matrix. Make sure everything that you're typing shows up in channel. Is it your first time? Your first time in IRC? Jump into channel, set a minute, watch what's going on. If there's a conversation happening, maybe wait a minute before you introduce yourself. And then briefly introduce yourself. Let people know what it is that you're interested in and who you work for and what you're interested in working on. Also, never expect an immediate response. If you ask a question, or if you've introduced yourself, or if you're asking for a review, it may take a while. Everybody may be busy. Also, no drive-by conversations. Don't join a channel, ask a question, wait a minute, and then quit the channel. You have to wait a while and go back and check frequently if somebody has replied to your question. So give it some time. It may happen immediately, it may take a minute, it may take an hour. If you need more tips on etiquette, I encourage you to go check this link on this page. There are similar best practices for email. Get a good email client, one that you enjoy using, and set it up to filter. Gmail web client is okay, but I personally find filtering to be difficult. Consider another one such as Thunderbird if you're on Linux, or one that you enjoy using. And please subscribe to OpenBMC. Everyone should be on this list. If you're involved in the OpenBMC project, you should be on this list and monitor it regularly. Use it as your first email point of reference, not internal email. Use it for all project communication that has a multi-day duration or needs to be archived or needs to reach a broader audience. Email etiquette. Please don't top post. That means putting a response at the top of a long email thread. It makes it very difficult to figure out what it is that you are replying to. A one-line reply should not get stuck in the middle of 150 lines of email. Feel free to edit the length of the email, but just leave enough subject matter so that everyone will understand what it is that you are replying to. And assume that everyone is doing their duty and reading all the email. And if they were, you should only have to copy someone if they were involved or you hadn't had a reply from them in a few days. And, as always, assume the best intentions in all conversations. Weekly community meetings are for high-level or cross-project topics. Deep design discussions should eventually flow to sub-teams or working group meetings. Remember, this is the goal to work towards. For now, in the community meetings, all topics are welcome. Weekly meetings are perfect for discussing and prioritizing community work, getting into the details of that work, or discussing current and next releases. Add topics to the agenda in the wiki page. Working groups are already forming. They just need a facilitator. It's a great experience for your team's natural leaders, and I'll be happy to answer questions on how to get those going. It's fairly simple. Email works pretty good, but latency makes design discussions hard. Of course, phone and video conferencing are better, but also consider IRC meetings. That concludes this part of the best practices for the OpenBMC community series. This was an overview of the slides' content. Please remember to review the slides for more details. Thank you.